Welcome, everyone. This is the October board meeting for the Whitaker Community Council. For those of y'all who are joining for your first time or are unfamiliar with the structure of the Whitaker Community Council, we serve as both the neighborhood association for the Whitaker and as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we have the double duty of serving as a great neighborhood association and a great nonprofit, but we function as a community council in both respects. And so our board of directors meets once a month to discuss board business and to make any motions and votes. And I wanted to go through two things really quick. One is the agenda and the other is ways to participate in the meeting. So if this is your first meeting of the board of directors for the WCC, there's 4 different ways you can voice your interest in participating in tonight's meeting. The first is by raising your physical hand. So that's going to be a little signal to me. I'm going to be acting as the facilitator for the meeting that you have an interest in speaking, and then I'll put you in the queue. Another way you can voice your interest is by using the raise hand function in Zoom. So I just popped mine open and I use the reactions function and the raise hand, and that's going to send up your virtual hand and be a signal to me that you want to be added into the queue to be able to speak. The third way is if you're calling in on a phone, you can say your name, Jen. I'm going to pick on you. Welcome to the meeting, Jennifer Denson. Jennifer would say Jennifer, and that would be a signal to me that they would like to be able to be added to the queue. The last way, and perhaps the best way, is using the Zoom chat function. So in Zoom, you have the ability to type into a message or type a message into the chat. Let's say I'm going to pick on Claire. Claire types into the Zoom chat, I'd like to speak. And so I would put into the Zoom chat, Claire is in the queue. And then, whoops, Claire was second after Ellen. So I would say the speaking order is Ellen and then Claire. And so what I'll do is I'll let folks know who's next and then who's on deck. The person who's next to speak is the person who's about to speak, and the person who's on deck is following them. So I wanted to pause for a second and give folks an opportunity to ask any questions if you have them. So it doesn't look like we've got any questions just yet, but we can have folks ask questions because coming up next is our public comment period. So that's an opportunity for members of the public to voice their comments, concerns, things they'd like the board to address. And then we're going to have another period after that just for board members to give updates both to the community and to other board members. And then tonight we have an exciting full agenda, continuing our conversation from last week with members of the Whitaker community regarding the City of Eugene Ad Hoc Committee on Police Policy recommendations, an endorsement letter that they brought to the board for consideration last week. And thanks to our board member, Angie, who's a member of our Social Justice Committee, who brought this to the WCC. After that, I'm going to give a quick update. We're doing our 6-month check-in. As a board, we've been together for 6 months and we got 6 months left to go. We're going to get matching tattoos next month, but I'll get to that in just a second. And then after that, we're going to have a quick update on our COVID-19 grant budgeting with some time for board motions and discussion if the board would like to make a motion. And then certainly not least, we have our charter review ad hoc committee, which is led by our board member, Jennifer Hoover. And Jen's going to be going through the revisions that have been made to the charter, updates from members of the community, as well as folks who are coming together around the charter and any updates regarding the charter and its process so that we can move forward. Last, we're going to have anybody who wants to chime in about future agenda topics on the board, and then we're going to end as close to 9 or before 9 as we can. So with that, I wanted to open it up to folks in the community who wanted to speak. And I know that Jennifer Denson and perhaps Amy from Burrito Brigade wanted to chime in into our public comment first. And then we have Nick Furrow from Away Home. And I apologize, Nick, if I've butchered the name of the organization, who also wants to speak tonight. So without further ado, Jennifer and Amy, I will pass it on to you for the first part of public comment.
I'm not sure where Jen went. Is she still on the meeting?
It looks like her square is still there, but she's unmuted, but I don't see her video on right now.
Okay, Well, I'll begin the conversation then. So some exciting things have been developing for us as an organization. We are bidding on a property here in the Whitaker, an area that was presented to be a community center in the past. And it was during a different tenure of the Whitaker Community Council, and was kind of shot down as we don't need any more services in the neighborhood, and the city didn't help with the permitting of changing the zoning. So we are hoping that with our relationship with the Whitaker Community Council, that as we move forward in this process of purchasing this building at Cheshire and North Washington, to house Waste to Taste and a kitchen for Burrito Brigade, but not be a soup kitchen, that we will have the support of the Whitaker Community Council to continue our efforts in this community. So I think that that's why we're here, is just to kind of let you guys know that we're really excited to have a physical location that belongs to us, as opposed to using get borrowed space. And then also just continue with the Waste to Taste food box project here. But also assure you that we're not looking at feeding hot meals out of the location if we get to move forward and get it. So that's, I think, what we wanted to say, just let you know where we're at in that process. We met with Nikos and from Ninkasi, and we're most likely going to be operating temporarily out of the house they own on 2nd between Van Buren and Blair. It's the brown house there on one end from the corner. We took a tour of that. It's got 2 small steps going up that we think we can put a ramp on, so we can really make it more accessible. It was one of the real hurdles with the last location we were in, was really helping community members who have different abilities, and that accessibility and safety there. There's a nice covered porch on the 2nd Street location where if people need to wait, they're not going to be in the elements. And so they're looking like at about a 6-month timeline where they're going to want to do some renovations after that. And we're looking at probably a 6-month timeline before we'll, be able to move into maybe our new home, maybe our new forever home. So that's exciting. I know that there's been some people have been really disappointed that we haven't been operating these last couple of weeks, and we feel pretty bad about that. Trying to get the information out through signage, but then signs get removed, and not everybody's on social media, so it's been a little bit of a heartbreaking time. So that's my report, and if Jen has anything to add, please add, Jen, or if you guys have any questions, totally feel free to ask anything that you'd like.
I was having technology issues, so did you already mention that there's the possibility of a building that is not correctly zoned, or did you not mention that?
Yeah, that's what I started off with.
Okay.
And that we would be hoping that they would be willing to write a letter in support of us moving forward, so the city would want to, help us change our zones.
Great. Thanks so much for the exciting updates. And we do have questions from board members, but I'm going to save those 2 questions from Thea and from Angie respectively for the board member updates section, and move on to Nick and then to Claire Shetman. So really appreciate the update. That's super exciting news. And I can't speak for the board, but I'd certainly welcome making a motion to the board to be able to formally support your work, because what you do to feed our housed and unhoused community is just unparalleled. And we want to be able to make sure that those services don't stop, and folks who have come to rely on you for access to get clean and healthy food within just a walk is unbroken. So thanks so much for coming. I really want to support you, and I know that y'all have some folks on the board who want to support you as well. So Angie and Thea, I see your hands. I'll make sure to come at you first once we get to the board update section, but I want to make sure that we have time for ample public comment as well. So Nick, you're up next, and then Claire Shetman, you're on deck. Nick?
So it was last year that the Thanksgiving dinner done by different community members didn't proceed. So they decided not to do it last year. And then a group of Whitaker neighbors came together to help produce a Thanksgiving last year that fed 350 meals in Wash Jeff Park. And this year, the group that I work with, which is called The Way Home, is going to be doing this again. We're going to go to 500 meals, and they're all going to be done via mobile outreach. Our partner doing the organizing the distribution is Bent Spoke Outreach. I'm sure some of you guys know Roger and the other people. So I just wanted to let you guys know this is happening, and we'll have 500 full Thanksgiving dinners. That's roast turkey with gravy, mashed potatoes, stuffing, green bean casserole, and cranberry sauce. And we'll have volunteers on bike and with cars who will go on routes that Rogers from Bent Spoke's going to help us make, and we'll get all this food out there. We have a number of community groups that are doing baked goods for us. So everyone will get a little bag of assorted baked goods as well. So really, I just wanted to let you guys know this is happening. And if people want to be a driver or be a volunteer who goes out on Thanksgiving Day, that they can reach out to me. I'll have a very clear list to sign people up to starting in early November. So that's thank you guys for letting me bring that up.
Fantastic, Nick. Super exciting, and we've already got some members commenting in the chat. So Nick, feel free to add to the conversation in the chat, and I'll make sure that we make time for board member comment during the board member section. Claire S., you're up next.
Cool. Hey, everybody. You probably know I have been the market manager for the Whitaker Community Market. And I decided that this is going to be my last year as the market manager. So I'm stepping back and kind of looking to what's next for me next year, which means that we're looking for a new market manager. And I just wanted to let you all know to get in touch with me if you or anyone you know might be interested in helping continue on our neighborhood farmers market. I have a link, I'll put it in the chat now. You can share this with anyone, or you can go there yourself to fill out that application. I'll put my emails on that webpage too. So you can just email me if you have any questions. Yeah, of course, we're looking for someone who lives in the neighborhood and is familiar with our homes. So yeah, we just finished our 6th market season ever. So looking forward to the next, 6 years.
Very bittersweet. What can you say other than, Claire, you've done an amazing job and you've really served the community and really grown the community. And so I think that you're leaving some really big shoes to fill. I remember fondly when I came to the Whitaker, I would help you set up the little barriers in the morning, sometimes very sleepily, sometimes grumbly. But yeah, you just tirelessly have been growing the market, and yeah, just wish you all the best and hope that we can find someone who carries on the legacy. The WCC is almost 50 years old, and yeah, I just imagine fondly our organizations continuing to grow together side by side for maybe another 60 years, not just another 6. So thanks so much for everything that you've done and everything that you're still doing. We have 2 board members who want to be able to comment during the board member update section, and we're kind of right on time. So Thea, you're up first, and then Angie, you're on deck. Thea?
So 2 questions and then a comment. One question, Amy, that is the old church or old building right there by Skinner's Butte Garden, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's the one.
Okay. I would love to, if we need to make a nomination to write a letter of support, I'd be happy to work on that, just to help support them with that. So there's that. And then the other question is for Nick. Nick, if someone needs a meal, how do they, is there a sign up way, or did Nick already disappear? I don't see him on my screen.
I think Nick has left. but
He's left the building. I will email him and ask him because I know there's people that need, there's some people out there that could use some help. And then my update is, if you know anyone who's living in their car in our neighborhood or in a motorhome, there is space available at the 2nd and Garfield location. It's quite open still. And let them know that. And I think they're even towing vehicles there. They're going to be working with the people that are on Cross Street right now, because there's a large group on Cross Street, and there's also a group that's cooking meth right next to the kids' bus stop. So we're working on getting the people that need help to the right places and the people that are doing illegal things away from the children's bus stop. So it's a combination of both. So if you know anyone that's looking for a place for car or camping, car or motorhome, okay? That's it.
thanks, Thea. And oh, Amy, go ahead.
Is there any handbills or anything that they're distributing to give to the car campers
I will ask.
information wise? Because
I
I
will
mean, that
ask.
would be a kind of a cool thing to have to hand out, instead of maybe having that. I would be happy to distribute some of those to people.
Okay,
if
I
had
will
the
ask that. That's a
coordination.
really nice idea, because I think they're relying on the parking, the people that are handling parking violations and St. Vincent's, and there's not enough people to get the word out. So I
Right.
will ask if they can do some handouts, because that would
Well,
be
I
nice.
think that having a different community member doing outreach that's not the parking meter
Right.
violator might be more well received.
A friendly face. All right, thanks, Amy. I'll
You're
ask.
not implying that the people who give parking tickets aren't the best face of our community, Amy. My goodness.
I would never imply that. I just think getting a parking ticket sucks.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. And thanks so much. I'm really interested too, Thea, what information you find out. And we might be a trusted messenger too, to talk to folks in our community. Anand, I know that you do wound care with Occupy Medical. You might also be a trusted face that we could do outreach to. Dan, I know that you talk to literally everyone. So you also might be someone who you could engage with folks and just let them know that we have some space opened up for members in the community that's Whitaker adjacent. It's super close. You really don't even have to leave the hood. Angie, you're up next. And if there's any other board members who want to be able to give an update, please just pop into the chat or raise your hand, and I'll make sure that you're added to the queue. Angie?
Yes, I think there's an opportunity for us as a board to pair with the Way Home and this Thanksgiving dinner, where we can combine outreach for our clinics and also support them by maybe providing some kind of thermos or something that can help transfer food in a way. So I'd really like to explore that. I know I tagged Margaret, who is amazing at this. But I just wanted to put this out for the entire board to kind of ponder maybe how we could support the Thanksgiving dinner in either through the grant or in other ways. I think. Oh, and if we need a second on that motion Thea made to support Waste to Taste, I would like to second that.
Cool. Yeah, Thea, were you making a motion for, looks like Margaret has quotes for Thea is making a motion that we formally
To formally
endorse.
support Waste to Taste.
Yep, formally support Waste to Taste, and there's been a second from Angie. So Margaret, do you have a comment? So let's open it up to discussion. If folks want to be able to have discussions for the motion, feel free to chime in popcorn style. Margaret, you're up.
I was just jumping the gun and saying, absolutely, I think that's a great idea. So I was voting.
Cool. So we're still in discussion, but now we know how Margaret's going to vote. Awesome. We value transparency. Is there any other board members who want to be able to add their thoughts to the discussion? I won't call you out by name. Angie, go right on ahead.
Amy or Jen, do you have an idea of like what we need to say? Do you have an outline of what our support should look like from you?
So we have somebody from the city who's on our board of directors, and so
Good.
she was on the phone with the city. She was on the phone with the city this morning when we were talking to the contractor. So it's zoned residential, but the land use was community center was what Jerry Spring saw the vision in 2019. So in order for us to do food prep and food, because we don't want to change our model of burritos are never going to be handed out from there, that we would still need to be commercial 1. And so we would just have to rezone it. But it sounds like she's got people on our side, but just the more support we have, obviously, I don't want it to be currently, the current bid is for a 6 apartment complex to demolish that building and put right there. Where of course, Amy and I want something different to happen. So I'm still talking to the city to find out but I mean, obviously the more support we have is going to be better. We're officially making an offer tomorrow. Hopefully she just chooses us and then we do all the loops. But I mean, obviously we want to know the loops before we jump through them, because we don't want to make an offer and then it not to be, but again, my technology was not great. So I don't know how much Amy said, but it's like completely gutted. So it's going to be a blank canvas right now. So it's going to take, but it's a great lot and it's a great space. So.
Yeah,
Angie,
it's a good spot.
your hand up as well.
Yeah. So when do you, if we were to pass this, how quickly should we have our turnaround on this letter of support?
Well, it sounds like the city is like 2 to 3 months when it comes to
Okay.
rezoning.
Thank
so
you.
I don't think we're in a huge issue, but obviously the more ducks we have in a place is going to be better.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Angie knows everything there is to know about ducks, so you couldn't have picked a better analogy. Thea has her hand up, and that's, I promise, the worst joke I'm going to have this evening. They don't get better, but it's just, that's the bar that we've set. Amy, I saw your hand up too, so I wanted to pass it to you if I could, Amy, and then right after you go to Thea. Amy?
I just wanted to add to that, since the city is so behind and permitting takes a long time, I imagine if we get approved and we have the opportunity to buy this, that we're going to get our applications in for the change in the permitting pretty quickly. So, you know, the city might take 2 to 3 months, but I would say that it would be awesome to not wait 2 to 3 months for a letter of recommendation from you all.
Great, thanks for that, Amy. Thea?
Yep. So the neighbors around you are very supportive. And I would guess if you went and talked to them, they would be very supportive, because with the former board, we went and talked to them, to all the neighbors around that building, about the rest stop that's there, the safe sleep site that's next to Skinner View, and they were all really, really supportive. So I know if you probably went around, you could probably, they would love to see it activated. I can tell you that. So if you went around to those neighbors, and if you need some board members to go around, I'm happy to go back around with you if need be. Okay.
Thanks so much, Thea. And with that, I'm going to call to question. And for those who are new to we don't use really Robert's rules. We kind of use like Billy Bob's rules. What we do as a board is that we have an opportunity for people to bring motions to the board. That's basically decisions that folks on the board want the board to make. And then if there's a second, that's someone else on the board saying, yep, that's good that we talk about it and make a decision. And then after that, we have deliberation, discussion, board members talk to each other. Hey, how do we feel about the decision? And then anyone can say call to question, which means it's time for a vote. So that's what I just did. And then I'm going to open it up to board members for a vote. So anyone who lives, works, or owns property in the Whitaker, you can run for the board of directors, which opens up next April. Definitely join. It's super fun. You get to do amazing work together in support of the community, like support organizations like Burrito Brigade. So please do join if you're thinking about joining us. If you're interested, look for more information on the April elections pretty soon. And with that, I wanted to call the question for board members for a vote. So even if we all vote in the affirmative, I'm still going to go through and ask if there are any abstentions or any nay votes, just to give you a heads up. It's not a nervous tick I have. It's just what we need to do to make sure everyone feels comfortable that a fair vote's been had. And so one thing I wanted to say to everyone is that we do have a quorum tonight. A quorum of the board means more than 50% of the board members are present so that we can hold a vote. And I promise that there's going to be less exposition as we go on in the evening. So just to give you a heads up, we have to make sure that we're compliant with our charter. Jen's going to talk more about our charter later on this evening. And that's basically the blueprint that helps our organization run more efficiently and fairly and for the community, because ultimately we're here to serve our members, folks who live, work, or own property in the Whitaker. And with that, I'm going to ask for folks to raise their hand or say aye if they'd like to vote yes, that we formally endorse a letter of support for the Burrito Brigade's building at the corner of Cheshire and North Washington.
Margaret's not on screen, but we know she voted yes.
Yes, so Claire Roth, Angie, Dan, Thea, Jen, Anand. Margaret, do you have your hand up?
She's not in the room, but she did say yes.
Great. Perfect. So Angie, did you count the aye votes? Great. All those opposed, please raise your hand or say nay. And then all those abstaining, please raise your hand. And just to give you all a heads up, an abstention is basically someone saying that I'm not going to vote, but it still counts as a no vote if you're counting for votes, because we need to have 50% or more vote in favor of a motion in order for it to pass. So a simple majority. Great. So with that, we have formally endorsed to support the letter for the project. And so I'd suggest that we have one person be the point of contact for the letter of support. Angie, Thea, do you want to Rochambeau for it? Angie, you're giving a thumbs up. Do you want to be the point of contact to write the letter of support? It sounded like Thea would be willing to do it as well.
Thea, let's share point of contact. How about that, and support each other in that way?
Great. So Amy and Jen, thanks so much for joining us this evening. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the night if you'd like. Please feel free to reach out to Thea and or to Angie in order to have that follow through and write the letter of support with the language that y'all need to move this along. Cool. Thanks, y'all. Really appreciate you both. And like I said, feel free to stay if you'd like. So up next, Angie, are you all right if I pass it to you to reintroduce Pat and Ellen and the letter of endorsement that they brought to the board through our Social Justice Committee last week?
Sure, yes. Welcome back, Pat and Ellen. Thank you very much for coming back to be here to answer questions. You have brought a drafted letter in support of the ad hoc committee on police policy that Ellen, I believe it came from your neighborhood association, and you are seeking our endorsement as a board. So board, this is something, Pat and Ellen came last week and spoke about it, and Ian also shared both the letter, right, what we're voting on tonight. I'm going to make a motion, and then also there's a summary of recommendations in addition to the other information you were able to read through. I believe, should we open it up for, I guess I'll start with a motion and then that'll lead us into discussion. So I'd like to make a motion to sign on to this letter as drafted that Ellen and Pat have brought to our board.
Thanks so much for that, Angie. Do we have a second from the board to formally endorse the letter of support as drafted? So I'll second. And with that, open it up for discussion. Are there members of the board who want to contribute to the conversation, thoughts, comments, concerns regarding the letter of endorsement that is in draft and brought to the board tonight? Or questions for Pat and Ellen? And we have Dan first. Dan, go right on ahead.
Yeah, I read the 2-page summary last time, and I think just getting more of a thorough but sort of lay speak set of explanations about what it's all about would be handy. And that's not just for us, I imagine, but for anybody else in the community who's concerned. I mean, I'm all for it as I have understood it, but there may be more for me to understand. So anything that's a little bit more digestible, I guess, than the massive document that was unfurling.
And it looks like Angie's got her hand up, Dan. So Angie, I'll go to you, and then Pat, or Ellen, if you all want to chime in with Angie, feel free to just popcorn right in. Angie?
I was going to offer to share the letter. Would that
Great.
be helpful?
And so Angie, you should be able to share it now. I've enabled multiple screens.
So I can do kind of a, Angie, did you want to say more about the statement before I respond to Dan?
Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to find my unmute button. Oh, this is not it. Sorry, it's not pulling up. It's being very strange for some reason. I said last week, I really appreciate Pat, you coming, and Ellen, you taking your time as well. We know as a board, we know through people coming to our meetings, as well as we know through the Whitaker Neighborhood Open Group on Facebook, that we have a lot of members of our community that are very unwilling to use police services and very in support of programs like Cahoots. This letter, it feels very in line with values that are stated in our community. And I think we as a board, I think this is a really responsible and reflective way to say, yes, we do feel like there's a way to move forward with policing in a way that's maybe feels more inclusive of everybody's needs and allows people to feel comfortable with policing. So I like this letter. I like how it addresses a number of the issues brought up in the committee, which was chosen. The committee was chosen specifically to represent a portion of our community that is directly affected in a lot of ways by the police in really negative ways. So that's my piece. I'm going to try to share it again. So I'm going to mute myself.
Thanks, Angie. And if you want, I can share the screen too, if it becomes difficult. I see Jen's hand up. Margaret was the first to say that she wanted to speak, and we have Thea in the queue after Margaret. So I'll put the speaking order in just a moment, but it's going to be Margaret, Thea, and then Jen. Margaret?
I'll say the same thing that I said last week. I went a little further and I went to the city website, and it's not just the letter that we're endorsing, we're also endorsing the whole message behind it. And for me, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things I don't understand. Yes, I agree with you, Angie, 100% that there are a population of people that do not trust the police and that don't want to call them, but there's also a population of people who are angry because the police don't answer when they do call. And I wouldn't say that there's more than one or the other. I definitely agree that the police need training. I'm 100% supportive of Cahoots, and even more so than that. There's just there's just a lot of unanswered questions for me when I went to the website and I read the whole mission statement and all of that. It just, I need to know more about what it means and what it doesn't mean.
So it looks like Pat had her hand up, maybe to respond to Margaret. And then Dan, would you like to be added to the queue, or did you want to chime in with an additional comment? Is it number 1 or 2? Put up your finger. 2, excellent. So Pat, please go ahead, and then Dan, I'll add you to the queue. Pat?
Yeah, I just want to make really clear that I think it's widely acknowledged that in our society, we have burdened our police forces with dealing with the effects of a wide range of social inadequacies and failures. So we expect the police to respond to issues relating to our large number of unhoused, our large number of people who are dealing with mental health issues and have no access to community mental health care, to those who are drug and alcohol involved, who would like to access a recovery program and cannot. And so this is the situation we find ourselves in relation to the police force that we, hire and pay for, and are expecting them to do a number of things that they're not particularly trained to do. That's not what they should be there for. And so, there's a concept called transformative justice, which is the bigger picture is we need to rethink our entire system and all the communities that we are letting down, and not expect the police to respond to all of these societal failures. We are so fortunate in our community to have a resource like Cahoots, where people are trained heavily in de-escalation and conflict resolution. And having people from Cahoots show up who are not armed, who are not in uniform, in itself is often a large de-escalation. So I just want to make it really clear that we're not saying that, the police don't have a job to do as long as there are, more guns than people in our society. There will be a place for people who can, are trained to respond to that and can respond to that. But meanwhile, we have Cahoots, an organization that could respond to the vast majority of calls that are not criminal, that do not threaten violence, and yet they're underfunded, understaffed, they can't retain their workers, they can't pay them a living wage. And so to my mind, and I'm speaking for myself here, certainly not for the ad hoc committee's 8 months of work, but I think that understanding of the position that we've put police in, where they're not, they're not the best type group of people to be responding to the vast majority of calls. So I don't know, Ellen, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you said it very well. I was curious to know, Margaret, what you meant when you said the whole message behind it, that's what you weren't sure of.
Well, it's, the letter here, and by the way, Pat, I agree with everything that you just said. And the police as well are underfunded. They are undertrained. They should not be dealing with many things that they're dealing with. That's just simply not their job. And I agree with that 100%. And I agree with the idea of Cahoots, and even taking it a step further than that. I'm talking about when I went and read the summary, just for instance, so the city of Portland just told their police department, I think it was a week or two ago, that they could no longer use any use of force. And so they had a riot downtown, and they did $500,000 worth of damage to businesses. And the police just stood by and did nothing. And, it's all over the news. And I think about things like that. Now, not that I agree that the police should go in there and hurt people or do anything like that. I think there's got to be a better answer than what that is. But when I go in and I read the summary, and I read things like it says in the summary to disarm the police. It says that on the website. I know, Pat, that you said that you don't necessarily think that is necessary and that there'll always be something for that. But it says that in the summary.
Oh, Margaret, are you referring to the demilitarization?
No, it also, that's something different. It also
Where does
talks
it say?
about demilitarizing their uniforms and the way that the way that they dress and it's been a week since I read it.
Where
So
does
to
it
be
say?
fair to myself, so
Margaret, it's on the
okay,
screen.
all right. So I do agree that we need to overhauling the crowd control policy, which I think Chief Skinner is actually doing or trying to. They definitely need to revise the de-escalation policy. I agree what it talks about the cameras. I think that, whatever they have on camera should definitely be public. If there's a court case or something like that, well, they can't make it public until after that's done. That goes in front of the court, and you can't have somebody, if it's going to be in a jury, you can't show that on a public website and then go for jury duty and already have your mind made up about something. But I do think that all that should be public record. I agree with all of that.
Margaret, I want to make sure that we have time for other board members.
And like I said, I haven't read it all, so there are just things in here, if you want to have a conversation at another time, I would be happy to do that, or send an email back and forth. We can do that.
So thanks for that. And I wanted to pivot quickly to Thea, then Jen, then Dan, and myself. We're going to have to keep our comments brief so that we have enough time for board members to engage. And then I'm going to call to question so that we can
scroll down.
Yeah, I will definitely scroll down. Thea, you're up next.
So I agree that we have both sides of the community we're representing here. We have people who are scared to death of the police. We have people who want police support. And there were lots of things in this summary that made me very nervous. I know that EPD has given up budget. They continue to give up budget. They want more help from Cahoots. I get that. And I get that Cahoots is understaffed and underpaid. EPD is just like teachers. Everybody's asked to do more than what they're trained to do right now. But there were a lot of things in this 2-page summary. And I actually started to sit down and read the 200-page report because I looked at things in this 2-page summary that I was like, I can't get behind. I'd be happy to write a letter of support showing both sides of our community if we want to look at that. But there are some things in here. And I know there are a lot of these things are already being worked on. So that I do understand. I do understand that there's a judge. A judge is looking at this. A lot of these things they legally can't change. So they're looking at things that they can do, but they can't change right now. Because I did call the chief of police and I said, ask him about this. I'm like, what are you addressing in here already? What haven't you addressed? What needs to be addressed? He's taking it very seriously. But I get scared with our city council folks because their head is not always attached to their shoulders sometimes. And by signing off on something, I get really, really nervous with that because it's taken a long time for them to start listening to us as a community, as a neighborhood. And so to sign off on this letter, it makes me nervous. And I'm happy to write something of our own that fits our neighborhood.
Thanks for that. And Pat, unfortunately, we need to keep going with board member comments. So we're going to go directly to Jen and then Dan and then myself. Jen?
Pretty much what the, Margaret and Thea has said. And I asked a question, I didn't get a clear answer last week. If the EPD was supportive in this ad hoc letter, and I didn't get a clear answer. So that, well, and also I would like to see the people that you listed in the organizations that you are concerned about represented. I don't hear their voices. And so there's just a lot of things to cover than those 2 pages and the letter. So can you tell me if the EPD is supportive of this process that you're trying to do?
So I'm going to chime in really quickly, Jen, and answer your question directly. So I serve on the City of Eugene Police Commission, which is the formal policy deliberation and policy making board for the City of Eugene. And I can say that because it's a policy question, that the chief has offered his whole support for the process of the ad hoc committee on police policy. However, like someone said earlier, there's a 3-member panel with the police auditor. This is the independent city-funded position which reviews instances of police misconduct independently of the police department, pairing with the city manager as well as the municipal judge. And so that 3-person body does have the support of the chief of police to be able to go through the process of reviewing the recommendations, of which there are many in the recommendations based on the panel. And your point regarding where do you see the voices of the people that were part of this process? If you read the 200 plus, document, there are multiple instances of which these groups, these representatives from these groups have submitted letters in which they too have clarified their position. And trust me, this represents a compromise across many domains. There are people that wish there was more, there's people that wish there was less. I think that what this represents, and I want to save it for my comment, represents somewhere in the middle in which the chief is supportive of this process and the process in which the city or the municipal judge, the city manager, city attorney, and city auditor are going through this and then creating a framework of this is already in process by the chief of police. This is actually requiring state action. This is something that we can do in the city. So it's kind of multi-pronged. And when I hear, does EPD support this? The chief of police represents EPD and he is supportive of the process in which those people that I mentioned before are working together to deliberate, hey, what can we do? What can we implement? What's going to require state action? What is going to require some sort of action by the federal government? Because there are certain things which the city doesn't have jurisdiction over that are recommended here in the recommendations. Jen, does that answer your question, or do you still need some additional clarification?
I'm okay. I think this is a lot to take in, a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It's really complex. I wanted to move on to Dan next, and then I'll end with myself before we call the question. Dan?
Yeah, well, Jen asked the question that was most forefront in my mind, what the city was thinking about this and how seriously they were taking the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. And my only observation after all of this is that, River Road has got its own set of problems, and the Whitaker certainly has. I don't want to say more than or more diverse than, but I believe both of those things are true than any other neighborhood in the city. And if we had the same sort of policing going in the South Hills as in the Whitaker, it'd be kind of ridiculous. And so I'm not going to make a proposal, but what seems obvious to me is that something in the middle between policing and cahoots would be super duper valuable here. I mean, the old days when there was a cop shop on 6th and Monroe, or where the Glass House Coffee is now on 5th and Blair, those were great for the community. Just having a presence. And like a lot of other people that Margaret has even mentioned, I rarely will ever want to call the police for any kind of intervention. But there's times that they're necessary. But really, somebody to just be there talking and de-escalating is the most important thing. I don't have anything to say other than that, other than like the housing market, the missing middle. There's something middle in policing that's totally missing. And nobody's going to invent a new force to help protect citizens or maintain order, whatever that means. But that's the size of that.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Dan. I just wanted to quickly add some of my comments. So like I said, I serve on the City of Eugene's Police Policy Committee, and I, as well as the unanimous group of the Police Policy Committee, the Police Commission, support this as well. And let me tell you why. we wouldn't be having this conversation if George Floyd hadn't been murdered by a police officer. That, let's be frank, there's been a legacy of police departments across the United States murdering people of color, and a legacy of institutionalized white suppression through and white supremacy through the police and by and through the police department. And in fact, the history of policing in the United States is predicated upon wealthy, land-owning, predominantly white communities, predominantly Western European white communities, English folks, Irish to a much less extent, really having hegemony over police departments. And that's been institutionalized through our police policy. Just last week, I brought a package of police policy recommendations to the chief, because anything that the police commission recommends goes to the chief, and the chief decides if he wants to bring it to the police, or excuse me, to the city council or not, of changing gendered language. Instead of using things like he and she, using gender inclusive and gender diverse language of they, removing male and female, removing language that genders people, because police policy has the capacity to institutionalize bias, both explicit and implicit bias. We all have explicit biases, right? We don't like cold days. We hate broccoli, but we also have implicit biases too, things that we're subconscious or unconscious of that really impact the way that we make decisions. And normally, not throwing shade to anyone here, a lot of the decisions we make aren't life or death decisions. A lot of the decisions, some of the decisions anyway, that police make are, quick judgment calls that unfortunately can result in loss of life, particularly when you look at how instances of police violence are disproportionately playing out in the United States. They're happening to communities of color. And so really the reason that this really robust and first of its kind in the city of Eugene committee came about was with support of the city council, support of community-based organizations like the Whitaker Community Council, particularly in communities of color and historically marginalized and underrepresented communities, saying that, hey, we need to look at policing. Something's wrong. Something's wrong nationally. We've said this for a long time. We need to make changes. And the chief supports that. The chief says we do need to have restorative justice. We are underfunded. We're being asked to do too much, but the chief is supportive of the process. And I want to say too, just because we endorse the recommendations doesn't mean that they're going to pass. I can tell you definitively, every single one of them is not going to pass. But what I think we do by supporting this letter is we endorse the process, much in the same way that the chief of police has. Are each of the recommendations perfect? Nope. I don't support all of them either. But I do know what I don't know. And even though I serve on the police commission and read and review a lot of police policy, including some of the policies that have been recommended in the letter and in the report, it's that we should be supporting the process too by endorsing this letter. What it tells our community is that we support when community members come together with police and with city government to be able to look really critically at policy in a new way. And I think what happens if we don't endorse this process and the recommendations that were a result of the process is that we tell our community members and we tell the city that that process isn't valid. Just remember that any policymaking, any recommendation is going to be imperfect. This process lasted for months and it came out with a set of recommendations which are imperfect. But I think what we really need to do through the letter is endorse the process. And I know that some of y'all are nervous around what the city council is going to do. Me too. I watched the city council meetings. I've read the whole 200+ page report. I wouldn't recommend that. But what I would say is that a lot of what's in the report, a lot of the recommendations are state level actions, some of which have already been taken by the state legislature. And in fact, again, and I can't kind of say this enough, what we're really endorsing aren't the recommendations, but the process which resulted in those recommendations. And I would say that the city's watching us. They want to understand too how people feel about it. And a lot of communities of color, a lot of historically marginalized communities, I've talked to some of the members of the ad hoc committee on police policy, feel like their voice isn't going to get heard. And so I just kind of want to end with that all policymaking is imperfect. I think that our country was actually predicated on that, on compromise and arguments. Unfortunately, we're kind of going way too far into inaction, but we're really designed to do less. And so what I think that we shouldn't do is vote to not endorse this, because what it positions us to do is nothing at all. And we know what nothing at all results in. It results in a history in which predominantly communities of color are disproportionately victims of police violence and brutality. And this really is the best step forward by our community, with the support of the chief of police, for us to do something different. So with that, I wanted to call the question and give board members a chance to either vote in the affirmative, to abstain, to say, hey, I don't want to vote, which is totally valid, as well as a no vote, which is valid too. And what we're voting on specifically is the letter that's been brought forward to us in the draft format. If for whatever reason this passes or it doesn't pass, we can always go back and create another letter as well. So with that, I want to be able to open it up for everyone who wants to vote in the affirmative in support of the motion by raising your hand or saying aye. Angie, do you have everyone's votes? Okay. And then I'd like to give an opportunity for everyone who'd like to vote no, please raise your hand or say nay. And then folks who want to abstain, please raise your hand. Thanks so much. Angie, did you get everyone's votes?
Let me enlarge my screen. So I have, let me repeat back. Yes votes, I have Claire, Ian, Jennifer, Anand, Angie. And abstain, I have Thea and Margaret. Correct?
Okay, with 6 aye votes, I believe the motion passes because it's a simple majority of the 8 voting board members that we have tonight. So Pat and Ellen, I'd recommend that you, well, I'll defer to you. Is there any next step that you need from the WCC, or can you just use Whitaker Community Council in your list of endorsing organizations for the letter?
Yes, but do you want it to be specifically the board? That
So
it's Whitaker?
the board speaks for the organization, the Whitaker Community Council, right? Because we're the board of directors that have been elected by the membership that we represent. So you can say Whitaker Community Council.
Okay,
And then if our community feels differently, again, there's elections in April, so they can replace all the folks who voted in the affirmative if they feel differently. That's, I think, the power of democratic representation on the board.
Mhm.
So just wanted to say thanks so much. Oh, Margaret, go right on ahead.
I still would like some more information. So if I put my email in there, Pat, will you email me?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, we could get together and talk, or whatever you like to do, Margaret.
I just want to know what it is that we're doing and what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, it's really been a pleasure to meet all you guys and interact with you. And I'm looking forward to signing on to Whitaker meetings in the future. You guys are amazing, all the stuff you do.
Thank you. And
yes,
thank you so much. Thanks for coming 2 nights. That was really generous of you.
Yes,
It
and
was
we're
in-
looking forward to you getting involved in the neighborhood and about what's happening. I remember you said you lived here, so
I do.
Yeah.
please, we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. It's inspiring to see all the things you're doing.
Well, that's an awesome segue into what comes next. So we're running a little behind. So I'm actually just going to run through this little presentation and say just kind of, hey, these are some of my thoughts. What I'll first say is I wanted to apologize. I meant to do this during the board member updates, but I know I owe people emails Jen, I know that I have some emails from you that I need to respond to. Angie, I know that I have emails from you that I need to respond to. I'm a little behind on emails because I'm in grad school and it's kicking my butt. And so I'm trying to find a new balance where I'm able to respond to emails in a timely way. So I apologize for those of you who have reached out and I haven't had a chance to respond back. And so I wanted to say, guess what, board? We've been together for 6 months and we have 6 more months to go. So it's an exciting time. And I wanted to just kind of quickly share some thoughts and impressions. And because we are running a little late, I would say that maybe we can come back during the next board meeting and get impressions from board members on how they feel regarding the proposed kind of structure actions that I'm making for the future of the community council and how we can be more effective as an organization. So 6-month review, gee whiz, the months have just blown by. We've accomplished so much together, so much so that there's not enough stuff to fit into a couple of slides in a PowerPoint. But I did want to say, you know, we've given tens of thousands of dollars back to the Whitaker in compliance with our grants with the Oregon Health Authority to make sure that our community stays safe from COVID-19, reducing COVID infections and transmissions, as well as increasing vaccine confidence. We've vaccinated more than 250 people since April. We've tested more than 100 people. We've given out dozens of gallons of hand sanitizer. Big shout out to Margaret and Angie for their tireless and work with Not Enough Thanks. We've uploaded all of our finances to QuickBooks. Unfortunately, Delaney is not feeling so well, but she wanted me to communicate to y'all that she trusts the judgment of the board. So just wanted to say, hope Angie gets better soon. But yeah, huge work to upload years of finances onto QuickBooks. And now that's a legacy that we can give to future board members and the future of the organization. We have a new transportation committee. Big shout out to Claire, Dan, and Andrew. And we have our first full-time staff person in more than 40 years. Although they're on contract, Doriandra, our program coordinator, has done a tremendous job of bringing in new volunteers, running our wellness clinics, and really leveling up our organization so we can serve our community even better. So where are we going? Well, I'm super excited that Jen's going to be leading the charge tonight on talking about our charter revisions and that process. That's certainly one of the things. A new website, big thanks to Angie and her work on launching the new website. Continuity binders, glorious continuity binders. Jen, you're going to revel in the joy that the attorney that we've hired on contract has actually given us our first draft of some continuity binder language so that future board members will have a binder of how to be a good board member and how to run a good organization. So that's huge. New grants. We've gotten new grants from Lane County Public Health, as well as our most recent grant to do work to sign people up for the Oregon Emergency Rental Assistance Program. More vaccines and COVID tests through our wellness clinics are coming. Art projects are coming too, and a safer community for all. Big thanks to Thea for her continued and tireless effort, to our partners at the Eugene Police Department, our partners in Parks and Open Spaces. Thea's just a powerhouse, and she's really led the charge to make sure that our community, all of our community members, housed and unhoused, stay safe. So how do we get there? We've talked about these projects that we're doing for the next 6 months. Again, this isn't exhaustive. It's a lot of work, and I know that there's more. Well, it's time to think about replacing me through a program director grant writer. The board has spoken. We want to be able to have a grant writer on contract or on staff to be able to write new grants, to manage the budgets and relationships for our existing grants, and to be able to do the activities so the board can do less of that work and focus more on what we do best, connecting with the community and making sure that their voices are represented. I'm advocating that we have more of a traditional nonprofit structure for the nonprofit stuff that we do while keeping our community council strong. So it's not that we're becoming more of a nonprofit, we're just becoming a better nonprofit, and we're becoming a better community council so that we can stay a neighborhood association and become a better neighborhood association while becoming a better nonprofit. And we also need to prepare for board elections in April of 22. And if we're all replaced, that's a good thing. That means that the community says, hey, board, we actually have new ideas and we want to see those new ideas implemented. So we really got to embrace change when it comes to us. So currently, this is what our staff structure looks like. We have our WCC program coordinator, Doriandra, who does work for our Public Health and Safety Committee, as well as our art committee, the Whitaker Community Art Team. Dorianja reports to me, I report to the board, and the board, we report to Whitaker community members, folks who are general membership who live, work, or own property in the Whitaker. What could it look like though? So just remember, this is just pie in the sky, some of my ideas, not bringing any emotions. I just wanted to get us kind of the creative juices flowing, particularly for next month in November when we meet again, and maybe talk about bringing together a hiring committee for the program director. So those little suns represent new positions, new potential positions with the grant funding that we have for the Oregon Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Wow, that's a mouthful. So imagine, if you will, where we had not one program coordinator, but two. Maybe a program coordinator focusing on housing and transportation. And both of those folks would report to a program director, and the program director would come to our board meetings every month and give a report to the organization, to the board, and then the board of directors would report to the community members. So this would make us a better nonprofit organization with taking me out of the program director role. I wouldn't do budgets, I wouldn't write grants anymore. All that I would do is be a cheerleader for the board and make sure that we have as many community members engaged as possible, and also make sure that our general and board of directors meetings are really well attended so we have more community voice. So how we get there, having a hiring committee for the program director, and a program director reports directly to the board, kind of how an executive director reports directly to a board in a traditional nonprofit. And the program director has authority to write grants, set grant budgets, communicate on behalf of the organization, and hire and fire staff. I didn't write fire because I'm sure they would hire all good people. And the board would still set strategic direction, be the voice of the community, and connect with community through general and board meetings. And we would also be the ones who hire the program director or fire the program director if it comes to it. But again, we do such a great job bringing on amazing people that I don't think that's going to be something that happens. So I know that's a lot, just kind of wanted to run through it really quick. Those are some of, kind of my thoughts around, how we could be a better nonprofit and be a better community council by kind of marrying the best of both worlds. And there's some awesome examples of this around the country. They're called community development corporations, or CDCs for short. They exist in places across the United States, and they do tremendous work. So I just wanted to kind of do a quick gut check of the board and kind of get some of your initial thoughts, but know that there was a lot of big ideas in there, and I wanted to bring this back to the board next month so that we can have a deeper conversation about it. So Margaret, I see your hand up. Feel free to jump right on ahead.
If I could find the unmute, I just wanted to say that I loved your proposal of hiring a board director and a program director, so it allows us as a board to be more involved with our community and hands-on and with our partners that we're working with here. And that's exactly why I joined the board. And I that sounds fantastic. That was all great, Ian. Thank you very much. Very well put together. And I love your thought process. It looks good to me.
Thanks, Margaret. And I wanted to share too, I'm not going to call out board members by name, but some of the board has said, Ian, we need to make sure that we're still a really good neighborhood association. And I kind of bristled at that at first, but I think that they're right. I think that by being a better nonprofit, we can focus on being a better neighborhood association too. And one really strengthens the other. It's taken a while for me to kind of accept that, right? Because it's different than what I've been taught. But I think some of our power really comes from this relationship that we have with the city and being a community council where folks are directly elected to serve on the board from the community that we serve. So I think that it's not an either or thing. We can do both, right? And I think that we can be a shining example of how to be a good nonprofit organization and a good neighborhood association at the same time. I've been advocating for this for a while for other neighborhood associations. Don't think they're game, but I think that our community's up to it because there's a lot of trust that's been built and a lot of capacity that we've built as a board over the past kind of year and a half. So I wanted to see if other board members wanted to chime in really quickly. I know we have a couple of other things to do tonight, so I wanted to make sure that folks have a chance to jump in, knowing that we're going to come back to this next month and have a chance to have a deeper conversation about it. Okay. Oh, great. Thea, jump in right on ahead, and I think we're going to move on to the next bit right afterwards.
I just think it's an exciting way to move forward, Ian. And if we work together, I think we can make this really, really strong.
Great.
And
Yeah,
you can finally get some sleep.
Yeah, there you go. Dan, I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, I guess my only question there is how would we delineate what is a good neighborhood organization versus a good nonprofit?
You know what? I think
Profit.
Jen's going to be able
And
to help
why?
answer that question
Okay.
in just a few minutes. Jen, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think that our charter actually has a great opportunity to help us do both. Because one of the things that really messed me up is that our charter serves as the blueprint for us as a neighborhood organization and for us as a nonprofit. And I was like, how can you navigate the two? Well, they're not mutually exclusive. Maybe the best parts of our kind of governance for a nonprofit organization could be the same ones as a neighborhood association, and actually community development corporations do just that. And so we're not kind of reinventing the wheel. What we're doing is taking something that works really well in other cities and making it work for the Whitaker in our own way. We're probably going to do some new stuff too, but I think that our charter is a really great opportunity for us to be able to make sure that we do both jobs really, really well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That was my question, Dan. I bristled Ian's feathers. I admit it freely.
Cool, right on. And I think, and all of our feathers need to be bristled because it happens in a respectful way. And I think when we push ourselves as a board to be able to think more broadly about how we can better serve our community, I really feel we make better decisions. Jen, I saw your hands up too. Or your hand up, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Jen, you have your mute still on.
I apologize. I was just wowed by all that action that you just presented, and I'm excited. That's all. It's just, that's why I want you to set up the recording so I can listen to what you just said, because it was like you were on a lot of coffee.
Yeah, I'm on a lot of lack of sleep and coffee. So I apologize, Jen, but remember that I will slow down and we'll have more time to discuss this next month. What I wanted to be able to do is kind of tease the idea out, have a chance for us to have some kind of gut reactions, and then really think about this a little bit deeper as a board next month in November when we meet. And just to give folks a heads up, Anand had to leave. We still have a quorum because we have 7 members present. And I think that's just a heads up for us moving forward. So we're still a little bit behind. And the next thing that we have tonight is to review some potential spending through our Oregon Health Authority grants to fund supplies for our ongoing wellness clinics. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. You're going to see some slides that you've seen before, but you're going to see some new requests for funding that have come from board members as well as Doriandra herself. So I'm jumping right into this so that we can have motions, discussions, and a vote for Oregon Health Authority grant budget allocations. So tonight we're just talking about funding for clinic supplies specifically, and I've divided them into physical supplies, like actual stuff you can touch and see and feel in the real world, or I guess in the physical world, and then stuff that's online or virtual, subscriptions to technology platforms and that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to jump in, show me the money. I'm about to. Jen, you're covering your face. I don't think you like my Tom Cruise slide very much. So grant funds spent, I just want to give y'all a heads up. You've seen these slides before. I haven't updated the second slide, but I just wanted to give you a heads up around what we're doing. So the grant funds spent, 25%, about a quarter of all of our grant funds have been spent at Whitaker businesses. Because this is kind of an old slide, I think it's gone up to about 30%. Most of our funding initially was spent on contractors, clinic supplies, and then advertising. And then last time we voted on funds, 14% were for Whitaker businesses, and we voted mostly on advertising, right? We're in a much different place. So some of the money was spent on contractors, and then a little bit was spent on clinic supplies. So we got some direction from board members. I think Jen specifically said that we really needed to focus on the things that were urgent last month when we voted on this. So we spent the time thinking about advertising and contractors. Today, we're bringing back to just talk about clinic supplies. We need some things to make our wellness clinics run better. So I am bringing forward some budget allocations for folks to deliberate on and for us to move forward with our clinics. And just as a quick reminder, the costs for approval tonight are for our clinics scheduled to the end of this year. I wholly imagine that we're going to be running clinics probably for a really long time, because folks love our clinics. They get vaccinated at our clinics, and they're accessible to loads of members of the community. So our second Sunday clinics run from 1 to 4. We have 2 more scheduled for the rest of this year. And our goal is between 15 and 50 people getting vaccinated per clinic. I believe at our last clinic, we had 47 folks get vaccinated. So big shout out to Doriandra again for her tireless work, making sure that we are well represented and that our community can access some of these critical supplies so that they can stay safe. And then this upcoming Friday, the 29th, we're going to have our last Friday Art Walk clinic at the Hybrid Lounge, where members of the community can have access to healthcare and also enjoy art and music. So that's something that's really a mainstay of our clinics, something that really separates us, and something that increases vaccine confidence too. People just feel a whole lot better when they're comfortable, especially people who are vaccine confident or vaccine passive who haven't gotten the vaccine for whatever reasons. So tonight, I'm bringing forward $19,900 for approval by the board. And just to give you a heads up too, if just because we approve a certain amount doesn't mean we need to spend that money. Basically, tonight as a board, we're saying, hey, well, we get to decide, hey, we have the authority as a board to spend up to a certain amount. So, gosh, there's a lot of things on here. I'll go through them one by one and explain what they are and why they exist. So we have a couple of clinic supplies. This first slide are clinic supplies that, and Margaret just chimed in. So our last clinic ran out of Pfizer vaccines at about 3:30. That says a lot. It certainly does, Margaret, and thanks for bringing that to the attention of the board. So these supplies are supplies that are physical. So they're things you can touch. So smaller hand sanitizer bottles. And again, we have 1,000, up to 1,000 allocated. We're not going to spend that much money. I just wanted to make sure that it was a chunk of change that we could spend down if we needed to. Hand sanitizer pumps, these are for our hand sanitizer stations. Again, there's no way that we're going to use $1,000, but I just wanted to be able to have a nice round number. So polymerase chain reaction tests, PCR tests. I wish Anand was still here, but he has to wake up at 5 a.m. for work. These are tests that are very accurate, much more accurate than the rapid tests that you swab in your nose, and that can pick up on very low doses of the virus. It's been tough for us to have a regular testing partner, and Anand has gone out and he has gotten us in the process of being certified as a tester ourselves. So now Anand, because he's a very generous board member, has gotten us started so that we can give tests. And by we, I mean Anand. So because Anand is a nurse and he's registered with Lane County Public Health and he works in the infectious disease division, he's worked to get us the ability so that we can do tests. And by we, I mean Anand. So shout out to Anand. If you ask me any questions beyond what the tests are, I won't be able to answer them, but I'm sure if you reached out to Anand via Facebook or by email, he might be able to answer in more detail. So IT infrastructure for meetings, whoops, sorry about that, includes some items that Angie's been advocating for a while. Angie, I don't know if you feel comfortable to just talk about some of those items that you've been advocating for, but you've identified them for a long time, and I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about them specifically if you wanted to. I can also kind of pull up the previous email that you sent to me and actually list them individually. Is that what you want to do? Okay, cool.
Yes.
I'll do that in a second. Office supplies, those include things like file folders, totes for the clinics, everything needed to be able to label individual files, a scanner. This is coming from Delinia. Unfortunately, like I said, she can't be here tonight, but it's to scan receipts so that if board members, oh, and chime in right ahead, Thea, after I mentioned the scanner. The scanner is meant for board members who seek reimbursement. This would allow us to automatically upload receipts to QuickBooks. Thea, jump right on ahead.
So in the scanner, can we make sure it's large enough to scan those documents that you saw on Saturday? So that it's not just a receipt scanner, but so you can scan the old newspapers and.
That's great. Yep.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic feedback, and I'll share that with Delinia.
Okay.
Claire, jump in right ahead.
And just because I made it my mission yesterday to try to find such a scanner in the community, it's pretty difficult. And the only one that I could find was at UO that can scan the size of the newspapers, which I believe is 18 inches by 26 inches. And University of Oregon, I think, was the only one who provided free scanning. So if we had our own scanner, that'd be fabulous. Because FedEx wanted $6 per page, and that wasn't even printed out. That was just a scan. So just a little bit of info there.
Thanks so much. Yeah, really important when we make the decision to purchase that we take the board's consideration into account and make sure that we buy a product that doesn't just work for our immediate needs with respect to the wellness clinics, but also has a longer shelf life than that. Office supplies, we talked about. New signs, these are new signs like the ones that exist. And during our last grant meeting, I think we were all kind of universally surprised that some of our signs that have been in the community for more than 12 months are still up in the community. The one near Washington Jefferson Park is still alive and well. And so that's just a testament to how hardy these things are, and that they can survive on the mean streets of the Whitaker. And the reason that they survive is because they have locks. And guess what? The locks too have become weathered and browbeaten. And so we ought to get some new locks too. A storage unit, shout out to Margaret. She's done due diligence on pricing for some storage units. And so this is a modicum of funding for us to be able to move forward with some potential storage space. And then sandwich boards, this is on here twice. So, oh no, sorry, the new signs are for the inserts, right? So the things that slide into the sandwich boards, and then the sandwich boards are the actual physical structure. And so that's why it's twice as expensive. It costs money to have those inserts. We should have some extra ones because they tend to get vandalized. Gosh, isn't that awful? And jumping right now to the virtual things, I wanted to just run through these 5 really quick. The first is a MailChimp subscription. This is an email marketing service. Believe it or not, we have a ton of emails from folks in the Whitaker from that 500-person clinic that we put on in March. Wouldn't it be great if we could send out communications much like we do for our mailers to people's emails? Our Microsoft 365 subscription, Angie's running point on as well. This is going to be our successor to Facebook. When it's time to say goodbye to Facebook, we'll salute it and let it die a painless death. QuickBooks, again, this is coming from Delinia. Unfortunately, like I said, she couldn't be here, but she's asked for us to pay multiple years of QuickBooks subscriptions so that future boards won't have to worry about this. They just will have QuickBooks on deck. And in our continuity binders that folks like Jen and folks like Delinia are designing, it'll show future treasurers how to be able to interact with QuickBooks and manage our finances online. Sign Up Genius is coming from Doriandra directly. This is going to allow us to actually manage our own sign-up process for our clinics. So originally we were working with Lane County Public Health. Now we're working with Whitebird. And Doriandra said, you know what, it's just kind of messy using those systems. It'd be a lot better if we manage those signups so that we could stagger people out. When we've worked with other partners, too many people have come all at once and it's just unsafe. And so by having Sign Up Genius, we're going to have a lot better management of our wellness clinics so that people who choose to get vaccinated or choose to get tested can do so in a much more structured and efficient way. And last is DocuSign. Last but not least is DocuSign. DocuSign is a system that allows for folks to sign contracts electronically. And so this is just going to make our contracting process a lot more seamless and better. We've had a lot of contractors. Right now we've got a contracted accountant, a contracted program coordinator, a contracted graphic designer, a contracted social media manager, a contracted attorney, right? And so those are a lot of contracts, and having DocuSign's going to help ensure that when we do sign something, we do so in a really safe way. So I wanted to open it up for with a motion that I'll make first and then have a chance for discussion and vote. So we're making a motion to authorize an allocation of $19,900 for all of the items that we talked about tonight. And I divided it up into 2 different buckets, but this all adds up to $19,900. So I'll make the motion and then Angie seconds, and I wanted to open it up for discussion and deliberation by the board.
Somebody has to let Claire second a motion one of these times.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Claire. I didn't see your hand.
I
No, no, no,
typed
no.
it to her, but Angie was too fast.
It's okay. I didn't know we could actually type it.
Well, she's rescinded her second. So I think that's,
Now I'm
I don't
turning.
even know if you can do that. Claire, do you second? I think Claire seconds. And Jen, I apologize. I saw your hand up. So I wanted to make sure that you were first in the discussion. Jen, jump right on in.
Oh, gosh. Okay, you girls, you crack me up. Okay, so what was my question? What is the IT thing for that? Angie, are you going to explain it?
Sure. Yes. So a couple of months ago, I got a really great recommendation from a group at the U of O that runs runs in-person and virtual meetings. So kind of a combo of the two. And that was our plan moving forward. That's what we wanted to do in the spring. It's what we had planned to do this fall, but have not yet done it because we're in bad shape with COVID numbers right now. But the goal is to buy infrastructure that includes speakers, projectors, screens, the whole deal, to be able to run basically hybrid meetings. So that's what that is for. I talked with that company. They outfitted it for a room roughly the size of the one that was Alluvium, which if we had a bigger room than that, it would work a little bit larger, and it would definitely work for a room smaller than that. So I don't know if we voted on buying it. I don't think we did, because I don't know that we had. Yeah, no, Ian's saying no. Does that answer your question, Jen?
Yeah, okay, so it's for what we had talked about before.
While ago, yep, I think in May.
And then COVID just really played a number on us.
Yeah, so the goal is to get this set up to allow people to not only participate online with video, but also with chat. So we tried to solve that issue. I know Margaret, Gail, Delaney, and I, a couple other people were trying to solve that issue, but Ian came up with a great recommendation. Let's have 2 screens going, one with all of our faces and one with the chat running. So this system would allow us to have hybrid meetings in a nice high-tech way without us having to buy a whole lot of little bitty things together and string them together.
Well, that's exciting, very exciting. And I'm wondering if Dorianda, if you are going to speak to the event center on Lawrence. I didn't realize it's called the 252 until you sent me that email. And I did happen to speak with the owner of the market of choice, Rick. He called me back, but I told him that you would make contact with him. So I don't know if that happened yet.
Sure. Hi, Jen. Hi, everybody. Yeah, just real quickly that I did communicate with their production coordinator today that does all the scheduling. Her name is Jennifer Henry, and she knew that we made the connection with Rick, and they seemed really excited to potentially host us. So we had some new developments today with some conversations that Thea had in other directions too. I guess the Eugene Mission was really positive about a potential space there. So we've kind of got a couple pans up in the fire, and I'm excited to kind of push through that and see where we are. So I'll connect with Cheryl again tomorrow and give her all of the dates. I've put the full dates out into a schedule into the end of June so that we can really look at a longer partnership and try to find our kind of forever home in that respect. So I did have fears that 252 would be too cost prohibitive, but they seem to be very workable with the budget that we've already been using. So even though that's much less than normally they would want, so probably about twice that, but so yeah, it was a good day with reaching out, and I thank you, Jen, for facilitating that beginning there with 252. So I'll know more soon.
Thanks, Doriandra. And I just wanted to go back to the motion and discussion because I want to give enough time for Jen to talk through the charter. And to Margaret's point, we actually didn't already vote on buying the IT infrastructure specifically. It was something that was tabled. And so we had direction from board members that because it wasn't a pressing need, that we push it off. And so we've pushed it off. Now, I think what we should do is, like Angie suggested, set ourselves up for potentially in the spring, knowing that we may need to pivot quickly to a different meeting format, but setting ourselves up for success seems like a good place to go. So Margaret, I see your chat. Jen, I see your hand up as well.
Do I get to talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
I'm just curious with this IT equipment, can we put out music in case, we can't get a musician and we're having a clinic and we can provide music?
Yep, there's speakers involved. Oh yeah, nice ones.
And maybe a visual. I don't know why I'm
Yep.
saying it.
Yeah.
Artwork,
Anything we could pull up online, we could use the system with.
Well, it would allow us to break it in.
That's true. That's a good point. We could trial it maybe when it comes in. I like that idea.
Okay. I'm kind of excited tonight. There's a lot of action.
Yep, and we're only 3 minutes above our schedule, so you'll have your full time to go through the charter, Jen. So I wanted to call the question and have a vote by the board for my motion to allocate $9,900 to the clinic supplies that I reviewed previously. And so all those who'd like to vote aye, please raise your hand or say yes.
That was 19,900, right? Correct? Yep.
So that's 7 by my count, and the train is voting in the affirmative too, but the train is not a board member. If the train wants to run for the board, it's April. So all those opposed, please raise your hand or say nay. The train is also opposed too, so that's a lot of mixed messages. And all those who are abstaining, please raise your hand. Okay, great. With 7 in the affirmative, looks like the board motion passes, and I will pass it right on to Jen, who's going to walk us through the charter review process. Jen, you have the floor.
Okay. So Ian, you're going to have to help me with this.
You got it. I'm here to help. Let me know how I can help you.
Okay, so I like to screen share.
So
And
if you go to share screen, it's a green button.
do I have your permission? Is that what it is?
Yep, you do.
Okay, so yeah.
So oh, perfect. Look, there you are.
Really? It's what? Where am I? Oh, okay. So this is new to me. I don't know how to do this. Okay, so when I'm not sure what I'm doing here, which is embarrassing, but that's the way it goes, folks. What are you seeing?
So what we're seeing is a Google Docs. It might be better if I shared the screen and then you walked me through it, and you just told me when to scroll up and scroll down, because right now it looks like we can't see the text. What we're seeing.
I can't either, and that's what my concern. Wait, let me see. How about that?
Now we can see it much better, but yeah, this is perfect. Now we can see it. Great job. Whatever you did.
Yeah, the thing is that I can't read the questions, so we'll get through this. This is the proposal that it's actually the revision, and it's up for discussion for this evening. And one of the things that I've asked people to do is, if you're speaking and going around different articles and sections and sentences, just let me know what article and what section you're speaking to so that I can follow you. And it was, I believe it was Angie, she was concerned about 2 years for the officers to commit to 2 years as officers. And she thought that was a bit excessive. Is that how you put it, Angie? I'm trying to.
Exactly. I'm like, let people a year and then let them decide if they want to run again.
Well, the reasoning behind it is that it shows that you're committed to the community, and there's that desire behind it. And once you get your feet wet, then you have the rhythm and you can go for another year, hopefully. And that was the thinking on that. And also there's Margaret had a question on it, which I can't see for some reason because your faces are all over the place. A concern that was a good one. What is the, what did she?
If you scroll down just a little bit, I can read them to you, because it looks like Margaret's comment is an Article 4 membership.
Okay, so, but before I go on, do you see how that green is in on the body of the revision? That I added that because of you, Ian, you made that suggestion. So I put that in there. And I'm gonna go down to, well, the only thing different about the our Article 2 is that I added a map and plus that other little change. And it's a good visual, so you get an idea, because I don't know what lot numbers, when I read it, I have no way of identifying a lot number. And I thought it would be easier. And then we're going to go down to purpose. Purpose is the whole reason we are existing. The WCC exists. We are here to serve the community. And that was something that I added a couple of more sections to that. And I don't think that there was any objection other than, I think, Ian, you had something that you wanted to have in, and you proposed a mission, which is something that, you know, it looks good. I'm not sure what to do with it. And how do I address the mission into the charter?
Yeah, so I think that the mission I got actually from the Whitaker Community Council boards past. So it was a mission that was stated by past boards. And I think the purpose, if we start with kind of the mission of the organization, what we're here to do, then each of the subsections, you know, section 1, 2, 3, 4, talk about how we deliver on that mission, right? So our mission, Jen, you probably have that in front of you. Unfortunately, I don't. But, you know, our mission to live that mission, our mission statement, well, we do that by being a neighborhood association. That's how we deliver on our mission. Because section 1 talks about the capacity to be advisory to city council, planning commission, city boards, things like that. 2, we resolve the concerns of our people in our neighborhood by being a community council, right? By being a forum in which people can come and bring their concerns and in which the board responds to those concerns. Section 3 is in a educational capacity. And then, you know, section 4, I don't know if it's there, but I would say something as, you know, us being a 501c3 nonprofit organization too. Kind of like our mission statement is kind of how we do. Oh, look, there it is. The Whitaker Community Council is a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. Look at that magic. Yeah. And so I think having a mission statement first is kind of like, this is who we are. And then each of the subsections after that would be, and this is how we are, right? Who is what we is kind of our DNA. And then the how portions is like how we execute on that, how we deliver on our promise.
Okay, I am not opposed to it. It's a good mission. I didn't, the order is something that was a concern to me. And I think that because we're being connected with the people in our community, to put the 501c first just seems out of line. It's in the wrong order. That should be after, that should go last. And where I have it here, section 4. Can you see that? So I could add in your mission. Is everyone else able to read his mission, his wording? I can't see it because your faces are in front of it.
Can you scroll down a little bit? I don't know if the mission's there.
I did write. I could read it to you.
Yeah, I think if you scroll up and read the mission, I think that might work better.
Okay, so Ian proposed the mission to read as follows. The mission of the WCC is to empower the Whitaker neighborhood and its members, primarily through educational, cultural, charitable, public health, and sustainable economic development activities to facilitate citizen participation in the life and governance of the neighborhood and the city of Eugene, and to otherwise improve the livability of the neighborhood through participation in various projects by residents and property owners. I'm not going to put the word workers in there because there's a reason why we took it out. Anyway, let's see here. And property owners via an open democratic neighborhood council. And I thought it was well put. I don't know if anybody else has an objection to it. No? Okay, I guess it gets put in there, Ian. Thank you.
Totally, and it's something that I found before, and I think tonight what's important is that we just continue the conversation too, because anything that we suggest that we put in there, our attorney might suggest otherwise, because based on tonight, we're going to need to make, you know, some changes in the way that we format the document, where we put our suggested language changes into a Google Doc of our existing charter, so the attorney can see the updates. And then even after that, we're going to have to take it from our legal counsel that we've hired on contract to the city attorney, so that they can have another look at it. But yeah, don't get too attached, because, you know, I found the mission statement from boards past, and yeah, the attorney might say, you know, I changed some words here or some words there.
Yeah.
So I just think that we should keep that in mind, knowing that there's a lot that we don't know.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to get to the attorney. I'm very excited about it. But if you can see how Margaret and others responded, Thea as well, that's how it would look. That's how it would operate. Can you see what I'm talking about? I can't see their words because your faces are.
I'd scroll down just a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit.
See, Margaret and Thea responded and asked questions.
Yeah, if you want to scroll down just a little bit more, I think that we'll be able to see all of Margaret's comments. Perfect. A little bit up. Sorry, it's kind of a little bit back and forth.
So this is what I was hoping you would do. And is that going to be workable for the our attorney and the city attorney?
So unfortunately, what we're going to need to do is have a Google Doc where it starts out with our current charter and then use track changes to make suggestions and comments, because what the city attorney is going to want to see is our proposed changes, and what our attorney is going to want to see is our proposed changes as well.
Okay. Wait a minute, I'm not clear on that, because are you saying that they're going to want to see both charters, the one that's, you know, at the city right now, as well as a revision?
What they're going to want to see is that the suggested revisions to our current charter. So the charter from, I think it was last voted on in 2006. So yeah, uploading that into Google Drive and then using track changes to make our proposed suggestions to that.
Oh my God, that's going to be a lot of work. Okay.
But you're not in it alone. You know, we can do, you know, a team effort to update the charter with the proposed additions, because I think this is going to be a great blueprint for how to update the current existing charter through Google Drive.
Okay, so let's see here. Margaret asked, okay, so the purpose, and so I'm not going to put the 501c3 information first, Ian, just because it's out of place. It's going to go last because we want to first address the people of the community. And those 3 sections take care of that. And then section 4 addresses the 501c3. And that's for the purposes of our being nonprofit and being in compliance. And so I'm going to scroll down to Article 4, which is membership. And I think Margaret also Teresa brought up, where is Teresa? Anyway, she brought up work. And the reason that is being removed is for checks and balances when it comes to voting. An example would be if a business was opposed to how we were running things at the WCC as board of directors, they can have their employees come in and vote to change everything. And we want to prevent that from happening. So that's my explanation for that. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, so I think that it's a super valid concern, but the way that we solve that problem is not by changing the charter. The way that we can solve that problem is by increasing participation from other groups. Because I think what we're doing is we're diminishing democratic representation. And the way that I've been thinking about this is we wouldn't limit a cooperative housing unit by sending just one member to represent them, right? Because at a single business, it's not a plurality, or excuse me, it's a plurality. A lot of people have different feelings. And of course, like a big business, I'll just pick on Ninkasi, right? You know, Ninkasi has been super supportive of the council over the years. But let's say Ninkasi changes and they're like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna change the WCC. And so what I really feel is that we should have more representation, not less. And then if we change the language to just a single representative from a business, what we're doing is we're saying that all businesses, all employees from a business think the same way when they really don't. And that we're forcing a business owner to choose a representative that best represents them. And I think that the way that we solve this problem is by being a great board, a great neighborhood association, and making sure that a lot of people have opportunities to participate, and we do checks and balances that way. Because I feel we wouldn't do the same thing for a housing co-op, right? We wouldn't say that, oh, we don't want the East Blair Housing Co-op to send all the people and then vote a certain way. What we need to do is limit their participation to just one person. So I think that it's a super valid concern. I'm just worried here that we're limiting democratic participation by just saying a business will have one person instead of making sure that people who work here have just as much agency as people who live here.
I hear your point, and I struggled with it as well, but I strongly feel that it's going to be better in the long run if there is challenges within a business. And it doesn't exclude people later on. It gets addressed in another article, and I think it's on committees. Anyway, when we get there, we'll go through it. But so it's like if you're a resident here, you get one vote. If you own property, you get a vote. And that property, it could be a business. And anyone who rents, you know, they're a resident. And I would like to see how other people feel. I like to hear how other people feel. Go ahead, Thea.
So for those of you who are newer to the board, we've had the discussion of people who work in the Whitaker at many charter meetings. And it came down to what a definition of work was. So it was it a musician who played one gig in the Whitaker? Was it someone who tended bar somewhere? And so that's where the work issue came in. And somewhere in one of these charters, there's a definition of what work meant. So that's where the box gets opened up is, do we say if you work for an hour in the Whitaker, do you get a right to be on the committee? And I understand what you're saying, Ian. So just giving you a little history on that, because it was many hours of discussion.
And also looking at the older charters, they did not have work in their charter as well. And it was interesting to reread all the work that they did in 1974 and for a few years on. And I couldn't find the use of work in there.
I think work was added in the last one, Jennifer, because they were trying to include people that were on the board that were only working, that no longer lived here.
I remember this going on. So anyone else? Margaret?
I think there are many people that work in the neighborhood and have worked in the neighborhood for a very long time. Somebody brought up bartenders. I mean, I know every bartender in Blair Alley, although I would never admit that, but they interact with the neighborhood on a daily basis. They shop here. They are here all the time. They're very influential in what happens here. The same thing with places like Sam Bonds and the pizza place and Ninkasi and Red Apple. And it just seems to me, as well as saying that, okay, you can have one vote per place, but everybody else gets one vote themselves, is that to me it goes against the democratic process. And working here would not be, as you brought up, Thea, which was a very good point. If you did one gig here, is that working here? No. Working means that you have a full-time job, that you work here and you spend time and energy in the Whitaker. And in order to vote anyways, you have to come to meetings. If you're going to vote at the end, if you're going to vote for who is who's running for council, I mean, you have had to have come to meetings before that. So it just, people that work here have very much to do with what's happening on a day-to-day basis in our neighborhood.
I can understand your point. However, if they want, they can discuss it within that business.
I disagree with that. I don't agree with everyone that works at my business. And you know very well, Jennifer, that, I have my own opinion, but I feel like I'm entitled to my own opinion and I don't have to do what my boss says when it comes to my own life and where I live and how I interact on a daily basis, only when I'm at that location.
Okay.
So
I hear your points. Anyone else? Thank you, Margaret. Okay, so I'm going to.
Ian had his hand up.
Jen Claire has her hand up.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of jump off what Margaret was saying, like I have heard many instances in which like what the employee believes is actually at odds with their boss or with sort of like the deciding majority of businesses or workplaces in the area specifically. And I hope I'm understanding this conversation correctly. I kind of had to be doing two things at once for a little bit here, but I think that the employed perspective, especially in the Whitaker, is a very it's an important perspective to capture and to have that understanding of. So
okay, well, we can vote on it. I wish that we had more people here. We're going to have to go through this again.
I think we will. That's what I wanted to make a comment, because we're at 8:55. Dan has a comment, and then what I wanted to propose, Jen, is a way for you and I and Delinia to work together asynchronously, where I can take what you've created here and then use track changes to update our current 2006 charter, so we can send that off to the attorney. But I want you to look through it and make sure that the comments that I see are reflected in the track changes document. But yeah, I'm hoping that what we can do is each of our board meetings for the next few board meetings, we can get through this piecemeal, maybe a third of it at a time, just so that we're able to spend the robust amount of time that we have discussing, because now I can see both people's arguments a lot better for the worker side of thing. But I see that Dan has a comment as well, Jen.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, well, I think business owners are definitely eyes on the street, as are the employees, more so probably usually than business owners, but they don't go to sleep here with the problems or the successes of the neighborhood. Some of them do, of course they do, but then they could be Whitaker Community Council members at that point. So I don't see any real reason to have, I know this is jumping off of a ledge here, but for either of them, those groups of people to be part of the discussion, unless they live here, because really they are eyes on the street, and that's super valuable, and there ought to be a way for them to express themselves and to give input. But if they're not living with it every day like we do, then I don't give them the same weight. I can't give them the same weight.
Thank you. So because we're running out of time, and I think we should do what you suggested, Ian, but I wanted to also, let me just finish this and I'll put that up for question, and we'll get together like you mentioned, so I could see it, because I'm missing all the comments that Margaret and Thea made, and they were good ones. So on the purpose, okay, we're through that. We're now in membership. The other thing that I added with, I don't think we're gonna have time for this. I think we're just good, because it's going to be a little more involved. Ian, it's 2 minutes of 9. So when can we schedule this, and when can we get together?
Yeah, so I don't think we would do a get together. What I think we do is work asynchronously. What I would do is I would port over the suggested changes and track changes, so they would show up as read, as well as the comments, into the 2006 version of the charter, which I would upload into Google Docs. And then from there, I would share it with you so that you could say, yep, this Google Doc accurately reflects the suggested changes, additions, and comments that have been made by people into the current version of the charter.
I'm going to have to see it. I'm a visual learner.
Totally.
So yes, it'll help me a lot.
Yep, I'll share it with you when I have a chance to work on it. And I know that some other board members too have said that they can help with the Google Docs piece.
Thank you. I mean, but it's easier if you come to my house. I will give you good coffee.
I've heard that you have good coffee to give. So I want to respect the tremendous amount of effort that Jen has put into the charter revisions. Thank you so much, Jen, for leading this charge and building upon the work that's been done for decades. But yeah, I don't want to diminish the work that you've done to be able to advance the charter revisions. And so what I wanted to do is both thank you for the time that you've spent and help us walk through and kind of facilitate this conversation, as well as talk about our board schedule moving forward. So I wanted to share with folks what our board schedule looks like. And it's going to take me a second to move this thing around. So I'm going to zoom in just a touch. Apologies for taking my sweet time to zoom in. So I wanted to go through the next couple of meetings.
Should I stop share?
You did. So I'm sharing now. So for our board meeting, our general meeting on November the 10th, we have a Whitaker Quiet Zone presentation, as well as a question and answer. And that's going to be facilitated by our Transportation Committee board members. Big shout out and thanks to Claire and Dan and Andrew. And Claire, feel free to jump right on in. I see your hand up.
Yeah, and I'll just say really quickly, and I'll send this via email as well. If anybody has questions for the city folks about the Whitaker Quiet Zone project, go ahead and send those my way, and I will make sure that the staff get your questions and have prepared answers, or feel free to just spring your questions during the meeting. That's also really fun to do too. Yeah.
So Claire?
Yes.
I sent an email to Andrew. I think he said he shared it with you.
I'll check my inbox, but if you don't mind just sending it to me again, if I haven't received it, then I'll follow up with you, and we'll make sure that I get the message. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so for the board meeting, I don't know what we have scheduled, what else we need to cover, but we're going to have a follow-up to Jen's charter presentation that she did tonight. And hopefully we'll have some items done by then. And I'm hoping what we can do is schedule a board orientation. One of the things that we've paid for through our attorney is doing a training for board members. It's something that's long overdue, but it's something that we have through the package that our attorney is providing. So I'm really looking forward to us as a board having access to some trainings for how to be good board members. And then in December, what we're going to do is have members from the city's demobilization team for Washington Jefferson come and present to us. And there's quite a number of people who are coming. And I imagine that between our meeting in November and our meeting in December, we're going to get the bulk of community members who are going to be eligible to vote and run in our election in April. So I'm hoping we can really make sure that a ton of community members show up to our November and December meeting, because we're going to have, again, like I said, the Washington Jefferson Park demobilization question and answer session in December, where members of the community can talk to city officials about the demobilization plans, safe sleep sites, and what we're doing to make sure that our unhoused community members who are currently at Washington Jefferson have options that they can use to be able to transition out of WJ if they choose to do so. And then in December, we'll do the charter presentation 3, the trilogy, the end of the trilogy, to be able to walk through the charter changes. And then beyond December, I know that we want to be able to have the chief of police come, and I wanted to use our March meeting to be able to have kind of a presentation on what the Whitaker Community Council has done, get people excited, talk to people about the board responsibilities, and then do a presentation to the community about the proposed charter changes, because we'll need to vote on those. And that's pretty much it. Elections in April, and then in February, we'll have an open meeting so we can schedule folks for our general meeting who, there might be a topic between now and February that's really important for us to cover. So we're a couple, and Claire, I see your hand up, so you can jump right on in, and then we have Jen and then Thea, and then we're going to need to end because we're already a couple of minutes over. But Claire, jump right on in and go ahead.
Okay. I guess I was just wondering if in the past years, if the WCC has done any outreach, letting people know that elections are coming up. Like outreach as in like, I don't know. I know we're trying to get away from Facebook, but like however else we do outreach, if we have like a mailing list or such. Thea's nodding.
Yeah, Thea's nodding, and I just wanted to say that we shouldn't get away.
Yes, we have, Claire.
I don't think we should get away from Facebook. I think we should get away from board of director communications through the board of directors Facebook group, because I don't think that's the most effective way to communicate. And like Jen has so graciously reminded us, we don't own these data, right? Facebook owns these data. So that's a more effective way for us to have secure documents stored. But yeah, if you have any ideas for how to be able to communicate to the Whitaker that we're hosting elections, whether it's skywriting or groups of doves that we release into the air.
I prefer carrier pigeon, but
excellent. I'm more of a raven type of guy, but I'm sure we can strike a compromise. Jen,
God.
you're up next, and then Thea, you're the last word.
Okay, I'm just curious. That's a lot in December, and it is the holiday, and we don't know what this is going to be like. Of course, with COVID, we don't know anything yet. But I was wondering if that was a lot too much for December general meeting. Yeah, and is it because it's a holiday?
Yeah, so I think literally our only topic is going to be Washington Jefferson Park. And I think that, it's the second Wednesday, so it's not too late in the month. I don't think, let me just pull up what the date is for December. And all of the people that were listed there are not necessarily going to be speakers, but they're people who are going to be able to speak to different aspects of WJ. Yeah, so the is our meeting date, and that's just like a week after the 1st. So I don't think that people are going to be traveling that early. Just like I think the 15th, which is our board meeting, I don't think people's travel plans are probably going to start until that weekend, which is the 17th. So I think we kind of lucked out a little bit with that people aren't going to be traveling. But yeah, that's a good point. I think that we shouldn't do anything except for Washington Jefferson, because there's a lot of ground to cover. I feel. I think that there's a lot to talk about with respect to Washington Jefferson, and community members want to know what's going on. Like almost everyone that I've talked to is what's going on with Washington Jefferson. Either concerned, where are people going to go? Are they going to be forced to move? Why is there grids now? And so I want to make sure that there's time for community members to ask questions, including unhoused community members. And this is something that Delinea talked about. How are we going to do outreach to Whitaker community members who live at Washington Jefferson? And so that's something that I hope we can talk about during the November board meeting, is coming up with a strategy so that folks who live at Washington Jefferson can participate in the meeting. Thea, you've got the last word.
So Chief did say he was willing to come if you want him at that 8-1. He will. Otherwise, let me know in advance so that I can get on his schedule when you guys want him. But right now he's scheduled for it. They blocked it out because that's what I thought you wanted, was him on the 8th. So it's on his schedule, but if that's what we don't want, tomorrow I want to email Holly and say, Holly, we don't want him here, but can we have him here?
Yeah, so it's too early to know about the schedule for next year, but definitely having the chief at the Washington Jefferson demobilization is the wrong decision. So consistently what I've heard from the chief himself, as well as other EPD leadership, is that they no longer want to be involved in homeless service provision or being the main point of contact. And I think we conflate that EPD is responsible for Washington Jefferson if we have them at the meeting. And I think we can probably expect some pretty significant blowback if the chief's there. So I really feel that by having folks who are not involved in the enforcement of the city's urban camping ordinance, which has been waived for Washington Jefferson, we'd have a much more productive discussion about how we're transitioning the people who want to transition out of Washington Jefferson into safe sleep sites and other kind of micro shelters or shelter options, instead of having the chief there who's in charge of enforcement, right? And people are going to be immediately like, oh, you're going to do a sweep of the park, right? Which nobody I've spoken to wants to do.
No,
So
they don't want to do a sweep. They don't want to do a sweep.
Right.
And then maybe if we have our IT equipment, maybe someone could be in the park with that equipment that people can come up and ask questions. I don't know.
It requires
I was
internet.
just typing that in.
Yes, so we'd have to look at hotspots and things like that. It's
They
the way we
have
have
hotspots and electricity there.
amazing.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate the conversation. And Thea, I don't want to lose the thread. I just want to think really critically about when's the right time to have the chief and what we should have the chief talk about. I think that if we have the chief as a standalone, it'll really get people coming together in a new way and hopefully build some relationships and trusts. And I think Teresa's okay. I'm pretty sure that Teresa's doing well. I know that she has a new job. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Teresa's okay. I also was wondering if she's still on the board. I think that she may not be on the board. I got a note from her saying that she's not really able to contribute to the board in a meaningful way. I've been meaning to meet with her, but haven't been able to do that just yet. So, I want to respect, Teresa's decision. I don't know if she still wants to contribute on a committee, or she just feels that she's not able to contribute on the board, but I haven't had a chance to meet with her just yet about it. But I'll keep the board posted after I have a chance to meet. We've been like ships in the night, me with grad school and her with work.
One more small question. One more fast one. Claire, I was wondering if it's possible for your committee that your dad and you and Andrew are on, that can have a study done on the traffic on North Polk Street, because it's getting it's intense here. Intense. I can't.
I'd love a study on every street in the Whitaker. I can definitely look and see what that looks like. And, I'm over in the neighboring street on North Grand, and I'm sure that we're both experiencing some of the similar intensity of increased and stuff, transportation stuff. I think I saw Amy almost get run off the road by someone that just wasn't paying attention to stop sign. And I was on my bike. So that's always fun. from the bike perspective. But yeah, we should just talk sometime, Jennifer, and yeah, I'll reach out to you. Is
Okay.
email good?
Yes,
Cool.
thank you.
Thanks everyone for your patience, for your enthusiasm, and for what little energy you have left to put it into this. It's 9:12, so we're again a little over time. I'm gonna stop the recording, and then we're gonna work with our social media manager to make sure that this recording jumps onto YouTube and that we promote the recording on the social media channels that we have, so community members who aren't here are able to participate too. So I just want to say thanks again, everyone, and look forward to staying in communication, and I'll be seeing y'all in November. Bye, y'all.